There's one episode of The Mentalist that never left my brain, not after the first watch, not after the 10th, blinking red light. It's not just my favorite episode, it's the one that made me realize who Patrick Jane really is beneath the charm. And it's the one that convinced me. James Panzer was the only other serial killer on this show who came close to outsmarting him. The story kicks off quietly. Jane isn't even at the crime scene. He's on the phone with Lisbon, stuck with a flat tire. But the moment he hears the details of the murder, young woman, bound hands, slit throat, pebbles on the eyes, he knows. And he's right. The police confirm there are 4 more murders with the exact same MO. Just like that, we're dropped into a serial case, darker and more methodical than most in the show. But what makes this episode different is what it doesn't do. There's no clean investigation, no clear forensic trail, no clever trick to trap the killer. In fact, the man responsible almost walks free. If Jane had followed protocol, Panzer would have gotten away with murder again. And what really haunts me, it's not just Panzer, it's watching Jane slowly come to terms with the fact that he'll need to become something darker to stop him. This episode isn't about catching a killer, it's about what happens when evidence runs out, but evil is staring you in the face. From the start, there's a quiet tension in this case that you can't shake. Jane, miles away from the crime scene, profiles the killer almost effortlessly. The way the wire is tied, the precise cut, the ritualistic object on the eyes. He doesn't need to be there to see the killer's mind at work. And what he sees is terrifying. Someone who's done this before and will do it again. But here's the thing. This isn't a normal case. Not even close. The police already had 8 suspects and no leads. And what Jane does next says a lot about how he views justice. He tells Lisbon to skip the hard data, to pick someone based on instinct. What you don't know is how much you know without knowing you know it, he says. Classic Jane line. But also kind of terrifying, right? Because what if she's wrong? Lisbon lands on Richard Highbosch, a creepy loner with a history of stalking teenage girls, and for a minute, it seems like it is him. He lies about his alibi. Van Pelt finds suggestive photos in his house. He even burns something in his fireplace right before they arrive. It's almost enough. Almost. But when they look closer, it falls apart. None of the girls in his photos match the victims. Taking photos in public isn't illegal. And suddenly, this seemingly perfect suspect walks free. Just like that. That's when it hits you. This is the kind of case where a killer can win, where due process isn't enough. And that's when Jane changes. He's not going to let this be another Red John situation. Not again. That illusion of justice, the idea that playing by the rules will always lead to the right outcome, completely shatters. And Jane decides quietly that he's going to play a different game. The moment we meet James Panzer, something feels off. He's too calm, too polished. He's introduced as a crime blogger and expert on the San Joaquin killer, even though he's not a cop, not a profiler, just a guy with a website. And yet, he's somehow standing right next to Agent Wainwright on a televised segment. That alone tells you how good Panzer is at playing both sides. He says he's doing it for justice, that he's keeping the public informed, but he's obsessed, not committed. This isn't just a story to him, it's a legacy. His legacy. You can feel it in the way he speaks about the killer, calling him a purist. There's admiration in his voice, subtle but chilling. It's not the kind of thing a grieving advocate says. It's the kind of thing a narcissist says when he's building a myth around himself. Jane picks up on it instantly. He pretends to be casual, asking about Panzer's research and Molly Meyer, the first victim. And when Jane gets to her room, he finds a DVD of her dancing to What a Wonderful World, a sweet, heartbreaking moment. But when Jane later hears that same exact song playing in Panzer's apartment on his iPod, that's when it clicks. Reddit fans caught the visual clue too. The owl painting in Panzer's background matches the one in the killer's hideout. Subtle, but damning. Still, Panzer plays innocent. He offers Jane water, shows off his wall of case files, says all the right things. But Jane's watching his ego, not his evidence. The second Panzer starts defending the killer, calling him a genius, a man to be feared. You realize this guy isn't just interested in the killer, he is him. But what's even more chilling, you get the sense that Jane knew from the moment they shook hands. At this point in the episode, Jane knows. He is certain that Panzer is the San Joaquin killer, but there's no proof. No DNA, no fingerprints, no caught in the act moment. Nothing the CBI or even Lisbon can act on. And that's when Jane makes a choice. A very un-CBI choice. He stops trying to catch Panzer the right way, and instead, he sets a trap. It starts small. He leaks fake intel to the media, telling Karen Cross they found the killer and will arrest him by morning. Then he visits Panzer directly and tells him the same. But then, like he's just tossing it out on the way out the door, Jane calls the killer a simple-minded pervert. Just a sick man who liked taking photos of girls. It's not a slip. It's a weapon. Panzer's whole identity depends on the idea that he's superior, untouchable, brilliant. Jane knows this. He doesn't need to threaten him. He just needs to insult him. And it works. That one line gets under Panzer's skin in a way no badge ever could. And here's what's so brilliant about it. Jane knows Panzer can't resist the spotlight. He wants people to know how smart he is. He needs recognition. So Jane takes it away from him publicly, knowing Panzer will do something reckless to get it back. This isn't detective work. It's psychological warfare. Jane isn't trying to arrest Panzer. He's trying to break him. What makes this scene hit hard is that Jane does it all with a smile. Calm, polite, thank you for your help energy. But underneath it is rage. Not loud, not messy, but quiet and calculated. Jane's not working the case anymore. He's hunting. And for the first time since Red John, you can tell he's willing to cross the line. This is it, the moment everything comes together and falls apart. Jane shows up on Karen Cross's show unannounced. It's subtle at first. Panzer's talking to the camera, basking in attention, spinning his expert narrative like usual. And then Jane walks in, calm, confident, sitting down like it's just another media appearance, but we know better. Reddit pointed this out too. This is probably the first time Jane's been in front of a camera since his wife and daughter were murdered. That blinking red light, that's not just a recording device. That's a trigger, a trauma, and Jane stares into it like he's daring it to blink back. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't accuse Panzer. He doesn't need to. He just plants the idea that the killer is wrapped up in his own mythology, hiding in plain sight, and on the verge of making a fatal mistake. And Panzer can't help himself. You can see the shift. He starts defending the killer, saying he's too brilliant, too precise, too good to be caught. He mocks law enforcement, basks in his own narrative, and then Jane drops the bait. He says Red John thought the same thing, and that's the breaking point. Panzer takes the bait and publicly insults Red John, calls him sloppy, delusional, nothing compared to the San Joaquin killer. And that moment, you can feel it in Jane's face. He doesn't smile, he doesn't gloat, he just stares. The blinking red light is back on, and now it's aimed at Panzer. That single act comparing himself to Red John wasn't just a fatal flaw, it was a death wish, and Jane knew it, because that's exactly what's gotten his family killed in the first place. Later, after the cameras are off, Panzer smiles and says, I was good out there, like a kid proud of his school play. And Jane, he just says, you were. No malice, no threat, just confirmation. Because the game is already over. A few hours after the broadcast, Jane gets a call. They found Panzer's body, lying cold next to the smiley face Jane knows better than anyone, painted in blood just like before. The message is loud and sickeningly clear. Jane didn't kill Panzer, but he did pull the trigger in his own way. He knew exactly what would happen when Panzer disrespected Red John on live TV. He used Red John, and Red John knew it and still followed through. That's what makes this episode so haunting to me, because technically, Jane wins. Panzer is dead. The murders stop. Justice is served. But at what cost? This isn't Jane cracking the case with some clever reveal or theatrical trap. This is Jane engineering a man's death by pushing him into the jaws of a bigger monster. And the worst part, he doesn't regret it. He knew Panzer couldn't be touched by the law. So he did the only thing he could. He broke the rules, weaponized ego, and let a serial killer be devoured by a bigger one. That's not detective work. That's chess with people's lives. And it shows just how far Jane has fallen from the charming mentalist we met in season 1. Reddit users picked up on this too. How this episode isn't just about catching a killer. It's about watching Jane become one. Not literally, but morally. He manipulates, he lies, he gets someone killed without pulling the trigger, and somehow, we still root for him. That's why Blinking Red Light is my favorite episode, not just because of the writing, not because Panzer was a great villain, but because this is where Jane stops pretending. He's not just after justice anymore, he's after something bigger, something darker, and he also brings Red John back into the game. And the chase continues. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing. And if you want me to dissect any other episode or character, let me know down in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next video.